going on, guys? Welcome to probably the last video I'll be making about Fortnite on this channel. I'm going to be basically talking about why the game is not as popular right now as it has been, and what can be done to fix it. So I've been told by some people that I am very good at noticing balance interactions, balance changes, and explaining and calling changes before they happen. I'm going to be talking about a handful of things about why Fortnite is dying. Instead of basically going into super deep detail, I have a document I've written. It is in the description below. This document is full of a ton of information that I have composed based on my experience playing the game in the last 2 seasons and some of my friends. I've had a few read this and say they completely agree with everything I've written here. So, and also, like I said, some things can't be fixed, and I will get to that at the very end of the video. So, without further ado, I'm sectioning this into 3 different specific topics. The first one being type of game that a battle royale is. I think that we've just had so much battle royale capitalism going on that it's actually waning the interest. Games like Overwatch are starting to get some popularity back out of the blue. Minecraft is coming back. Minecraft is just a little bit of everything. I think people are starting to get tired of battle royale. Especially because the model of the game is that you have like a 5% or less chance of winning the game. Whereas when you're playing Overwatch, it's logically 50. Assuming that your team is a competitive team and ready to play. 50% win rate is what the idea is. Your chance of winning is 50% win, 50% loss. When you're playing battle royales, it's like 5% or less win, 95 to 100% loss, depending on your skill level. And of course, there's also a sharp skill curve with battle royales. When you're playing a game like Overwatch, you can suck and then play a support role instead, and your team can play a better game. There's been games where I've seen 4 deeps, 1 tank, and 1 support, and they've beaten our team because I'm playing full support, and my frontline DPS on my team do not know how to kill anything. So, the concept of Battle Royale could be starting to wane into people's minds, and people may just be tired of this kind of stuff. That's the first thing I'm talking about here. Now, of course, it's also worth mentioning that there are a lot of variables in Fortnite in particular. Some of the variables are consistent across other games, and you'll see in a second here, but the main variables of Fortnite, consulting my document, is the randomization of the circle, the randomization of your loot, the randomization of rotations, because sometimes you're forced to rotate over a location or around a location, and sometimes it's a decision where you can go through, around, under, left, right. Maybe you picked the wrong option. Maybe you didn't know somebody was sneaking down at the bottom of a base ready to attack. Bloom, arguably one of the most important concepts that needs to stay, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. The craziness of some concepts in the game, the airstrikes, the storm flips, can completely undermine your plan. And of course, your building materials. You have to keep a control of your builds. If you run out of builds and it's pushing you up a mountain, you've died immediately and the game's over because you just can't get out of the storm. And that's also the nature of Fortnite with such high mountains and low valleys everywhere. And you kind of need the builds to get out of them. So all these add to this inconsistency feeling. So when a player is able to win like 20 games in a row, I become suspicious because there are some really good players in Fortnite, don't get me wrong, but there are too many variables in Fortnite to manage. You can't micromanage the storm, your ammo, your drops, your build mats, RNG of bad pushes, you can't micromanage these things in every game you play. There's going to be a game in like 5 where you get boned by the final circle and you don't have any way to rotate to the circle without eating storm damage, or you have no mechanism to get around the enemy team just locking you and holding you in storm. So when players like, for example, Z-Rotation I've seen like 70 win streaks on his account. I am suspicious of his gameplay. I am fairly convinced that he is currently using hacks, because there is no way that you can win 35 to 60 games in a row, even on Xbox, or I think it's Xbox he's on. And he always has like 1 to 3 kills per game he wins. So I'm also claiming that he rotates using a baller the whole game and just rotates to the last circle and attacks the last team or 2 during the final fight. So, like I said, too many variables, and the game also becomes chaotic and hectic. And also, let's not even talk about building edits. In the last update with combat shotguns being added, building edits are incredibly important. It used to be just about managing your builds and knowing where to position yourself in a build fight. Now, you gotta watch all your flanks. People are trying to W key into your build and stuff you with a gun. And that's not fun to me. And I don't think many people out there like it. I'm sure there's like 1 for 100 who actually enjoys barrel stuffing and pulling a gun and putting it in your cheeks, but I think the majority of the player base has just kind of shut up about it and let it play out because they can't really stop it. So that is also a huge problem, and it results in this aggressive feel to the game. Again, clarifying, I'm going to go ahead and clarify 4 tiers of players. I'm making 3, 4. We have casual players, which I'm literally just identifying as any player who plays Fortnite who isn't necessarily savvy with the game, hasn't played it a lot, and is not actively trying to get better. They're just trying to have some fun. Mid tier, for lack of a better word, you can call them middles. They are not casuals. They can get kills. They can definitely rotate. They know the game well enough. They know the items. They're familiar with everything. They can make plays. They can win some games. Not necessarily consistent, though. If you're put into positions where you're fighting higher level players, you're not expected to win, but you are actively trying to get better. Up until recently, I kind of classified myself here, but I don't really actively play to get better anymore. I play to have fun with my friends. So I'm kind of floating between casual and mid tier. Then we have Sweat. Sweat is basically a player who I classify as like 500 wins, comfortably able to win solo matches, comfortably can edit, confident in their aim. They're pushing their rotations. They're ready to make plays to win games more often. They're the player that you usually are watching win the game at the very end. And then I also identify a pro level, but by a tennis definition of pro, by sport definition of pro, basketball, soccer, whatever you call it. Pro is usually something that you classify a person who is winning money in an official tournament. So, theoretically speaking, pro would be people who have won money in Fortnite Cups. Arguably, I have a few friends who are pros, according to that. However, you can also, like I said, you can have a very lucky handful of games in like a World Cup entry level. Suddenly, you could win a World Cup ticket. And you could just have a really good day. Bad rotations for everyone else, you get really lucky 10 times. Suddenly, you're heading to the World Cup. And then you get to the World Cup, and you can't kill anybody because it was just a lucky day for you. Which I'm also calling is going to happen to some of these players. Some of these people who qualified do not belong in the World Cup. They just got really lucky in a couple of fights. Got some crazy kills. I'm not saying they're not good players. I'm saying that other players who are better than them did not qualify due to the factors and variables that I talked about a little earlier ago. So, all this is resulting to one last thing on this topic of the game nature. Casuals are leaving the game. Why? Gee, I wonder, maybe getting barrel stuffed on 3 for 5 games isn't the most fun time to play with your friends. I've noticed that a lot of traffic has gone back towards Minecraft because there isn't a competitive nature to the game. You can go play competitive Minecraft maps and games and servers if you want to, but there's an option to not. Fortnite did address this. They added Team Rumble, and that's where most of the casuals who do enjoy the game are currently playing the game. So what I'm trying to say is the game kind of feels like you can expect to see a lot more mid and sweat players per game, and it's, I want to say, maybe 1 for 100 games a casual team might win. And that's not a lot of fun to get knocked out of a game early 40, 50 times in a couple of days. You may enjoy the game and want to get better at it, but, nature of the game. If you're not good at it at this point, like the players who are, I call it like the average player is between mid-tier and sweat now. So whenever you attack a team or an individual player, you usually expect them to fight back and hurt you. You can't just jump on people like the way people used to play and expect to just walk across other players. Other people can hit shots now. They are good. They can hurt you. It didn't used to be that way. So now the second point I'm going to talk about is the game's current state. This one is probably the biggest reason, and I will stand behind it as the main reason people are leaving. The aggression in the game is part of the problem, but the fact that the game plays this way is also a huge part of the problem. One of my friends has actually actively told me that he will be leaving Fortnite if some things in the game, such as the ballers, the combat shotgun, the slipstreams, the sky platforms, he said he will leave Fortnite if he logs in Season 10 and sees these things still in the game. The problem is, these concepts are all mobility concepts. They were added to the game to try to make it easier to avoid the storm. But people are taking these and using them to be incredibly aggressive in the game, resulting in this feel that it's really difficult to play a game without expecting a baller team to just roll up a hill and take your high ground and swipe your whole team. So, not necessarily a bad thing if you're Fortnite and you're trying to market competitive, regular battle royale is not the most entertaining thing out there. This kind of mobility plays, when you go on Twitch, arguably right now, the game is in its best state in its history on Twitch, because the streamers have learned how to use these items so well that they can keep the stream active. When they first started being streamers, a lot of the games were slower, they were having like 4 kill wins, things didn't feel that amazing. Now that you can jump in a slipstream and cross half the map with it, you have the ability to end a game faster, and you can fight people by taking the fight to them. You can parade around the slipstreams, use the sky platforms to fly. There's so much room to work with. You can basically just go anywhere on the map you want, find people, land on them, fight, and leave. And because of this, and like this shockwave grenades coming back in, the launchpad accessibility, the spike trap accessibility, all of these things have resulted in this concept that rushing a team isn't a bad idea. And on top of that, this didn't used to be as bad for one single reason. There is an item in the game, or a thing in the game, that has basically taken away part of the fear of being knocked. And those of you guys who realize it by now without me saying it, you know, this took me a while to come to this realization. The reboot vans give you the ability to take a player who has been sent back to the lobby and bring them back into the game. If you have a team of 4 people and you lose 2 in a fight, but the other 2 can clutch up, you can bring your 2 lost teammates back instantly. And if you're confident that your team is a good team, you can expect to win more of these fights. And if you are confident, you're more aggressive. So instead of it being one of those things where you rotate, you know, to try and just survive, suddenly you're rotating to attack and kill, because that's, you know, oh no, we lost the guy. Let's just reboot at one of these vans that's conveniently placed all over the map in easily accessible places. Yes, it's risky. I'm actually an advocate of the idea of making it 15 seconds to reboot a team and not 10, and making it a little louder. The noise it makes as the bus is starting to reboot. I feel like it's just so powerful, and they come back with pistols. They can literally jump out of the bus and kill your team with pistols. Yeah, arguably pistols aren't strong, but they still do like, what, 50 damage on a headshot on close range? So, pretty strong. You can still kill a team with them if they're not ready for it. So, and also they're protected. When they jump out of the reboot van, they got like, what, 15 seconds of I can't be shot or killed? And they can shoot during that. And I've talked about how nonsense it is that when you come back, like if you're rezzed in a game or something, this is like for Overwatch, for example, when you're rezzed, you can't use anything for about 3 seconds. You're invulnerable for 3 seconds, and you can't shoot guns for 3 seconds. That's balanced very well. In Fortnite, you can't be shot for a handful of seconds, and you can fire your gun the second you reboot, as soon as you get up off that thing. And you got like 10 seconds of invulnerability, which is nonsense. If you're a smart player, you can just rush somebody and use your pistol to kill them. Like, some of the decisions have resulted in over-aggression being rewarded too well. And on top of that, like, some people don't even go get mats because they can just kill somebody who has mats. So, the game's just in a weird state right now. And the combat shotgun also rewards close-range play a little too much. And the fact that it fires, like, what, 3 shots in just over a second? If you miss 1 pump shot on a person, they can kill you with a combat. That's just the nature of the game. When they're adding all these shotguns back in, like if they ever add the heavy shotgun back, it won't matter because the combat shotgun's still better. The new TAC gold shotgun is pretty cool, but it's not good enough because the combat shotgun is still better. A blue combat shotgun can still outplay a gold TAC because the gold TAC player has to get right up against you to kill you. You can shoot that combat shotgun about 2 tiles being the size of a build, and you can still deal serious damage to that person, and over the course of like 4 hits, you can kill them. 200 health down. That's the problem. That's also why the build fights have been getting much more crazy looking than they ever have, because people are forced to block every angle they think they're being attacked from in these fights. Arguably, that's not a bad thing, but at the same time, the more hectic a build fight looks, the more freaky it is for a casual player. Like, if I'm running by Dusty Divot, and there's some guys going to the sky limit above, like, Diner, I don't want to push that. Why would you push that? You look for a place to third party and shoot at them up there, but you don't push that. That's stupid, you know? It all just kind of comes up to this concept that the game's game state is kind of in a weird place. Arguably can be fixed, and I'll talk about how to do that at the very end of the video. maybe you guys can clip some of these things I'm saying, and if you agree with them, please, if you have power, let's tell Epic this. They know some of these things, but this game can be saved. It won't have the player base it used to have, but the players who still want to enjoy it may stay around longer. So the last thing I want to talk about is the players. Inherently, players are not always, bad. When you're playing some games, like for example, Minecraft, a lot of the games you play in Minecraft, like Skyblock, don't have to be a competition. Some people like to just make a really cool island. They like to get really far ahead, get some money, make a cool island, decorate, show what you got. GTA is a bit like that too at times. Sometimes it's just about getting some money so you can buy a facility or a nightclub or something, decorate it and have some fun, right? Fortnite is all about win count, your stats, and having skins that make you look tryhard. Naturally, these things don't really result in a good image of the game. Fortnite hasn't done anything wrong. Well, okay, the Take the L dance, that one was a mistake on their part. That one they should openly admit blame if that was a mistake to put in the game. Because that's the same thing as screaming, ha ha, loser at somebody when they're playing a sport, right? That's not even acceptable. That's called bad sportsmanship. I play tennis. If you throw your racket, you get dinged for bad sportsmanship as a warning. And if you yell profanity, you lose a game. There is no tolerance for this kind of behavior. In Fortnite, when people, for example, I'm thinking of stream snipers right now. Ninja's just running through a field in, I don't know, his lazy lagoon landing. Pot snipe. Somebody's hiding behind a tree, stream sniping him. They know where he's going to go. They are waiting around a tree. They snipe him in the head or they shotgun him. And then they L dance on him or something, or I don't know, make it rain or something. And in the older days, he used to literally DM these names of people who did this to him to Epic, who he suspected of stream sniping, to ban them, to ban their accounts, because he was trying to make a statement that stream sniping is not okay. It didn't really work, and in fact, it's resulted in more harm than good. He has some people who he knows the name of, who will stream snipe him, but they just they go get a gun, bring it to him, drop it on the ground, then dance or something, They're not deliberately trying to ruin his experience and ruin his content. And that's different. But people, in the end, ruin a lot of games. The attitude of Fortnite is to be selfish and win games. Inherently, anything that you do will appeal toxically to everyone else. If you are in a duo game and you knock an enemy team, they're going to yell insults at you because you just knocked them. And if you kill both of them, then they're mad because they've just been removed from the game. Whatever they accomplished in that game is gone. If you dance on them, now you're being a bad sport. Now you're just basically rubbing your victory in, trying to piss them off and enjoy what you believe to be reactions of anger. That's why a lot of people stream snipe. They like knocking the streamers and listening to them yell about it. They enjoy that. Some people are like that in this world, and I understand that. But the problem is, it's like a notion. If you thirst, with of course thirsting being knocking a person you knocked, killing him the second you knock him, some of these things are necessary in the game. You have to thirst people, or else they're going to get them up. They're going to be back to attack you. And now that their shield's so accessible, you can expect the knocked player to come back at you with 150 health again, That you can't take it for granted. But at the same time, people kind of give thirsting a toxic rep to the point where it's part of the game. It's part of the nature of the game, but and it's just inherently toxic. And of course, I don't even want to start on the cheats, okay? I've never even been aware that there were Fortnite cheats. EJ, one of the guys in my Discord I play with, has actually shown me how they work. Let me be honest here, guys. I actually want to make a video showing you how these cheats work, because it is insane to me how readily accessible they are. When I was Googling, I just searched Fortnite cheats and hacks. First site that popped up was a open forum. I can't remember the name of it. It's been open since 2017. The first reported dates posted was October 2017. People literally had mods ready for this game a month after it launched. I don't even know how they guessed this game was going to be popular, right? There's some hacks that are simple, the average normal ones. Aimbot, health hacks, shows you health of everybody around you. Chams is a nickname for basically highlighting every person on the map, warning you if you can see them, letting you know if they're obscured by something. It highlights their character green if they're accessible by a shot. If they're blocked by a terrain or a build, then they're like orange or red. Um, you know, there's just a lot of readily available hacks to play in these games. So you're playing a game, and suddenly there's a guy with 30 kills who just snipes you from 400 meters away. You don't even know where it came from. And you go to them, and they're L dancing on you, right? And they have a default skin. And you're sitting there, and their name's something like Milk the Cow, or like, insert absurdity, those kind of people do it because they get satisfaction in ruining other people's experiences. It's not a, it's not a good state of the game. And people tend to ruin this kind of stuff. So, to finish off, quick synopsis. The game is kind of exhausting itself. BR is beginning to feel more and more like an exhausted topic, and I'm willing to bet the next huge game that blows up is not going to be a BR. Secondly, the game's current state with the combat shotgun, over-accessibility of shields, over-accessibility of snipers and ballers, mobility items are in high abundance. The game just feels really weird right now. In Season 8, some things like cannons kind of gave that too, but even cannons were clunky, and it took you like a few seconds to fire yourself out of a cannon. There was balances to everything. And in Season 9, it feels like the mobility is so powerful that the players who are aggressive are rewarded far more than they ever were. And with reboot vans as well being added, it's just a recipe for disaster. And it's just resulted in this feeling that if you do not currently have a very strong aim game, you won't be getting one. So, how can the game be fixed? I am going to list a handful of ideas that I have thought up. Some of them are from friends. I will quote them. Some of them are just concepts that I've derived. And the first one I'm going to start with is one that EJ told me this morning. I've mulled it over quite a bit. I think it's actually a really smart counterpunch argument. So, third partying is an incredibly powerful mechanic in this game. Attacking the team that's already being, fighting somebody, they're not ready to be shot. They're managing a shotgun fight or a SMG fight with somebody in a build fight. They're not ready to get rushed. If you snipe them, suddenly you've given yourself a window to attack this fight and possibly knock them all down. So, EG was proposing a concept where when two teams are fighting, let's say that one team knocks 3 of the other guys and the 4th guy clutches it, builds a castle in order to hide in, pop back up, and then he manages to knock out the entire enemy team. EJ is advocating a concept called build repurposing, or build possession, or repossession, where when you knock an enemy team, their builds become your builds, and you can now edit them. This is actually, when I thought about it, initially I was indifferent on it, but now I'm actually really strongly behind it, because that will punish a third party. If you've gotten into a build battle, and you now own the builds of the build battle, you can now create yourself more room to pot back up and potentially fight this third party a lot more effectively than it used to be. It's a really simple concept. It could be extremely difficult to work with, but in the terms of trying to start to counter some of the aggression, it might be really strong to work with, Secondly, this is my personal thing. I think you need to nerf reboot vans. Personally, what I think they should do is the same concept as chests. So, I would say it's a 33 or 50% chance that any one location has a reboot van, and don't mark them on the map. People know the locations by now, okay? When you reboot, you shouldn't tell people where the reboots are. If it becomes a little harder to reboot, some of the aggression might go away because people are going to be forced to play a little more intelligently. And of course, there's always the risk that the locations they're going to res their teammates don't have a bus. So, the idea of the reboot van being nerfed, 15-second to respawn instead of 10, 10 seconds, it takes 15 seconds to pop a chug, In the grand scheme of things, 10 seconds is really fast. And I can't tell you guys how many times I've gotten cheeky reses off by sneaking in between a build fight, getting the res, and just running with a baller, right? It's so powerful that it needs a nerf. And that's how it needs to be done. So, I think the reboot van needs a huge nerf. I think it needs a delay to how long it takes to res people. and I think it needs to be reduced in availability because there's a reboot van in every single location. Have that per game, or even 33% per game. There's more risk involved now. Suddenly, reses are possible, yes, but you can't just expect to win a location and get the res off every game. And that will present a little bit of a fear and anxiety in going for these attacks. Another one, a bit of a slight oversight, but I think that some items have a little too much power in the meta to the point where Fortnite's style is to basically allow meta to exist, address the meta by buffing something else. In the case of the ballers used to be so strong in Season 8. They had 500 health and they literally wouldn't die. And they've been brought all the way down to 150 now. A heavy sniper can one-shot a baller. So what do they do when the ballers become so strong and accessible that it's almost expected to see them in post-game? Buff snipers. They have essentially been introducing new snipers like crazy, making them incredibly accessible. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the drop rate on between floor loot, chest loot, and the averages is about 20%. Shotguns are like 30. So snipers are, it's basically assumed that an enemy team has a sniper rifle in their inventory. Or at least one, maybe 3, maybe 4. Maybe they all have a sniper rifle. There's been times I've gone to a location and found 4 sniper rifles in 4 chests. They are so accessible now. And of course, that results in gameplay that basically, if you aren't sure that if everyone has a sniper, then you can always expect that somebody might have a line of sight on you when you're running through a location. And that creates anxiety. Arguably can result in less aggression because the snipers pin enemy teams away from each other. But the over-accessibility of building and mobility items is removing that fear. You can, find a way to get to their build through shadows, through storm flips. There's ways to get there and close that gap. Arguably not a bad thing, but in my perspective with aggression, I think it is. I also think that, in general, mobility items should be completely reduced in availability and reduced in effectiveness. Like, the shadow grenades are so powerful. I actually used one early this morning. There was a huge team fight. 3 sweaty players landed on my team. Knock, knock. Bit of a fight. Knock. I'm at the bottom of a structure, and my whole team is basically just lying dead throughout this mess. So I used a shadow grenade to climb on top of the build, and it was so much noise between the slipstream above me, the enemy team shooting at them. I snuck up against the guy, blasted in the back of the head with a shotgun, killed him. His teammate jumped down on me. I put a trap on the one wall, blasted him. The trap scared him into the corner. I blasted him again. He got knocked. Third teammate comes jumping down on me. You see what I mean, right? All of a sudden, here I am, poof, magic, genie. I'm suddenly attacking this team. They thought I was gone. They thought I was in a slipper leaving. They had no idea I was there. I used a shadow grenade to win a 1v3. And they were sweaty players and logically better than me. So, while on one hand you can call it an upset, I don't think it's a balanced, when the shadow grenades are that common, I don't think it's balanced that well. I think that they need to be a lot more inaccessible. And of course, talking about Season 10, what's got to change in Season 10 to bring players back? Personally, I think that the sky platforms and the slipstreams need to go. The mobility they provide is way outweighing the ability to get away from the storm. The storm is the biggest concern. Epic's been adding these items to try and help you get away from the storm in different ways, but people use them to make better plays. And of course, like, if you take the combat shotgun out of the game and make shotguns a little less available, you will reduce aggression immediately. And if the slipstreams and the sky platforms are gone, suddenly you have to find items to increase your mobility. And all of a sudden, the aggression dynamic will probably have or drastically fall because there's not an over accessibility of mobility items, If you reduce the drop odds, get rid of the sky platforms, and get rid of the slipstreams, the storm is now a concern again, but there are other ways around the game. You can make the first circle bigger. You can make it like 25% bigger, and the second circle 25% bigger. If you guys notice, the third circle is basically a location. The third circle could be 2 locations. You can make the storm a little larger, and the games thought logically would last a little longer, but players would be able to live in them longer. When you make circles that are 1 location size, there's a lot of storm deaths. There's a lot of people just dying to bad variables, and the game then becomes unplayable. There's little things that can be done here and there with the game. The storm can also be nerfed slightly. The first storm, maybe it deals half a damage every 2 ticks. So, or not, a half of damage every tick. So logically, every 2 seconds, 1 damage. The next circle is 1 damage over each second. If the circle isn't as terrifying initially at the start of the game, the mobility isn't as much of a problem anymore, because now you don't have to help people get away from the storm, because the storm isn't a huge dangerous factor anymore. Yes, you can still get like destroyed if your circle pushes you from the top left corner of the map to the bottom right corner of the map. Again, in bigger circles. And if the first circle is centered more over land than water, which it doesn't currently do very often, you're also making it so that first circle isn't necessarily going to guaranteed kill some teams. I'm almost willing to bet we're gonna, because according to some other information I've heard, they were talking about reverting back to, I think they said season 4 metas, to see how people like them. Because some of the seasons that were the most popular were seasons 3 and 4. That's when the huge influx of players was playing the game. So logically, the game might be popular if it was reverted back to a season 3 meta. And would we lose a lot of the items we've gotten today? Yeah, I think we will. But for, Epic may rebalance some of them and have a way to bring them back in without making them too strong. When you make one way of killing somebody too strong, everybody uses it. And it results in this concept of, you know, a meta. And arguably metas aren't always a bad thing, but if you don't like the meta, you leave the game. If they can make the meta more widespread, people will stay. And that's, I think, what they're trying to do with this revert, is they're trying to please the masses. If you guys agree with these concepts, talk with me. I'll be in the comments talking. I'll read a lot of them. Let's see what you guys think. What do you think is in store for us in Season 10? Honestly, I don't really want to play the game on this channel, so I'm probably going to be leaving it. I got a series starting soon with VR Minecraft. Not exactly sure how far I'm going to get into it before a couple of things happen, but I'm going to try and get a few episodes recorded before I head home to my parents' place for my break off of summer college. So hopefully I'll have some actual Minecraft content coming up soon. That's going to be it for this video, guys. I look forward to producing some more content over the next few months and trying to see what you guys want to see. I want this to be economic, so I'm hoping that the videos I make, I'm not being a view hog, but I'm paying people for the editing, so I'm hoping that I can get some return on investment out of this. I love making the videos. I love being part of the community. I'm on Twitch a lot, streaming casually, playing games. I've been playing Beat Saber on my Twitch channel. When I start doing some combos on good maps, I might even make those and put those on YouTube, like Zine does. I've got stuff that I can do. The thing is, you know, I gotta make sure that the decisions I'm making are gonna help me in the future as well. So if the YouTube channel starts to plummet, I might have to make a tough call, and I don't want to. But I don't know, you know, a lot of unknown out there. But I'm having fingers crossed that stuff looks up in the future. I hope that content starts to go back up again. I hope Hytale comes out. I hope I'm able to stream Pokemon Sword and Shield when that comes out. I've got a lot of stuff I can do in the next few months, and I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed as well. So those of you guys who stuck by me, I appreciate it. Might even get some Discord events going soon, trying to reward activity. I've played with the idea of running tournaments in my Discord for actual money, but I haven't. I'll have to work that out a little further. I gotta look into the TOS of Discord, make sure that's actually allowed and I can do it stuff like that in Discord, but I'm pretty sure it's okay. As to what they'd be, probably like Blast Off tournament or something on my map. I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you guys share my views, let me know. I'll see you guys next time.